Hello everybody, I hope everybody's doing well. If you're like myself and have been cooped up in your house for the past couple weeks and are more than likely going to be cooped up over the next couple more until the end of the month because of the coronavirus lockdown, you're probably getting bored with a lot of surfing through the internet and a lot of Netflixing, so I figured I'd do a couple videos, something a little bit longer, a little bit more in depth than social media posts or Facebook posts or Instagram posts. So today we're going to talk about Tom Palmer. Tom Palmer is a great inker for Marvel Comics, and especially for me, for Doctor Strange comics. Tom was born in 1942, which makes him about 77, I believe now, and has been paired with many great pencilers and artists, to include Neal Adams, John Buscema, John Byrne, and for me, most notably, Gene Colan. They would work on Doctor Strange Volume 1 together, and then they would go on and work on the Tomb of Dracula, which are two great series. Doctor Strange Volume 1 also is written by Roy Thomas. If you don't know who Roy is, please Google him and look him up if you got some time. Great writer. Also did a lot of work with Marvel, editor-in-chief, and a lot of other jobs too. So before we get into the work that he did on Doctor Strange Volume 1, just really quick, if you don't know about Doctor Strange Volume 1, it ran from 1968 to 1969, and it started off with issue 169, and that confuses a lot of people because they're like, why didn't it start off with issue 1? Well, Doctor Strange basically took over Strange Tales, and they kept the numbering sequential, so where Strange Tales left off, they picked it up for Doctor Strange's self-titled book. Maybe a marketing thing, so when people looked at the book for the first time, they thought it was on issue 169 and said, hey, maybe it's a stable book and it's something I should pick up, or something less market related. But either way, that's kind of the story behind it. The first issue of this series is issue 169. Dan Atkins would both pencil and ink 169 and 170. One of my favorite Doctor Strange artists. Again, if you don't know Dan, look up his work. He does some great stuff. The exception to this series that would run through 68 and 69 is issue 178. And if you've seen this, or excuse me, 179. If you've seen this cover, it's the black one. It's got Spider-Man on it. It's really a cool cover, because anytime you see those old comics that have those black covers, and if you got that comic book in great condition, you know, they're just fantastic to look at. But this was a reprint. The story that's in here isn't an original story. I think there's a reason behind it was a deadline was missed, so they pulled a Spider-Man story and printed it until they could catch up. So just a little history on Doctor Strange Volume 1. So let's move into Tom's first work with Doctor Strange, and that was on Doctor Strange 171, shown here. It is his first work as a penciler for comic books. Some of the interviews that I read about it said that he wasn't very comfortable with it. It was his first, pencil work that he did for a comic book, and really credits Dan Atkins for kind of pulling his butt out of the fire with his inking. But I think it's great all the way through. And in the center of this comic book, if you go to the staples, there's a 2-page, 1-panel layout that's the basis for one of my favorite panels in all the Doctor Strange comics. And that image was used for, oddly enough, my favorite poster in my collection, which is The Search by Marvel Third Eye. Third Eye Inc. is the company, and they did a set of Marvel posters. A lot of different Marvel characters had their posters, and they were all blacklight posters, which are just wicked when you turn the lights off and hit them with a UV light. Doctor Strange actually had 3 posters in this series, and with the posters they had and sold greeting cards that had the same image as the poster on it. And then some of them actually had puzzles too, and the puzzle that they did for Doctor Strange for this series was the same image, the Search image. I'll cut a quick pic in that shows what those look like. So Tom did a 22-page pencil for this. Turned it in, came back. When they went to issue 172, they gave him Gene Colan's pencilings and said, hey, would you mind inking these instead of actually doing the penciling for the story? So he started inking from that point on and really started one of those great penciler and inker duos, throughout comics history. They did a great job together. Like, if you haven't seen the Doctor Strange stuff, I'm sure you've probably seen the Tomb of Dracula stuff. It's just some great work. And then they picked up and went from there till the end of the series, with the exception of that Spider-Man cover, the issue 179. Tom would then move on to do a lot of other work throughout the decades, Star Wars comics books, Avenger comic books. He did Silver Surfer Volume 2, Issue 1. This is one of my favorite covers. I love this comic book. He did the inking for the cover, and he also did the inks on the inside for the story, and actually did the color on the inside of this book also. He's done coloring for a few comics, but again, most notably known for his inks. I'll put a link to his website at the end of the video, and like I said, if you've never heard about him, please look him up. I'm very happy and fortunate to actually have a piece of his work in my collection, original piece. I don't have the money to be able to spend $80,000 on an original cover piece of art with him and Gene. I generally don't have the money to spend, you know, $10,000 or $12,000 on a good interior page for one of those stories. But I was lucky to come across this great 11 by 14 head shot of Doctor Strange, which really is great in my collection. The Tomb of Dracula, again, if you've never done the Tomb of Dracula stuff, it's awesome, especially this weird funkadelic cover. You can't beat it. It's got Doctor Strange shooting bolts out of his hands on a weird psychedelic horse with rainbows shooting throughout the back of the cover. It's just crazy. But again, look them up if you haven't seen them. Check it out, and we'll see you again in the next video.